Hey there Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. So in today's video we are going to be taking a look at Chiron in the 12th house. So what we're going to do is we're going to address the wound associated with having Chiron in the 12th house, followed by some practical tips and tricks and advice on how to heal. However, before we do get started, if you would like to know more information all about your Chiron sign along with your Chiron house, as well as your Virgo house within your birth chart and your 6th house respectively, then I have created a Virgo season / archetype ebook. So what I am going to do is I'm going to provide a link to that ebook in the description box below so that you can pick up your copy today. Alright then, so with all those introductions out of the way, Chiron in the 12th house. Let's do this. Okay, so what I am coming to notice here is that if you have Chiron in the 12th house, there may, first of all, be a wound associated with the pregnancy that your mother had with you. So what I mean by this is that whilst you were in your mother's womb as you were growing, maybe there were some serious implications. Maybe she had to go to hospital quite a bit. Maybe she had violent vomiting episodes, or maybe she was even emotionally drained from the whole process. You know, of course there's many implications that can come with pregnancy overall, and each individual can be different in how they experience pregnancy. But I feel that with Chiron in the 12th house, it was very turbulent, it was really chaotic, and just overall quite destructive. Maybe this even could have been where you sucked a lot of energy from your mother, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just that maybe, for example, she found it really hard to eat, or maybe she felt malnourished while she was pregnant with you. Just perhaps there just could have been a lot of pain associated with your mother's pregnancy, but yet maybe in a way subconsciously that same pain and struggle was then put onto you in a strange way. So what I mean by this is that as you did then come into the world and you started to grow, perhaps in some sort of subconscious level, maybe you could always sense that your mother struggled with you, or like your mother's pregnancy was a bit of a burden. Or do you know what, this could even be a situation where your mother has told you about her experience, and maybe she had, so whilst pregnant of course with you, and maybe there were a lot of things that she had to give up, or there were a lot of things that she really struggled with within her everyday life whilst pregnant with you, and she has shared these stories with you, and maybe in that way you've shared a lot of her pain, or you've recognized a lot of her struggles, and perhaps that's made you quite emotionally attached to your mother in that regard a little bit. Like, her pain is your pain, her wounds are your wounds. Furthermore, when it does come to the 12th house, of course it's connected with the collective unconscious. So even if this wasn't necessarily a wound associated with your mother during pregnancy and how that might have impacted you and her and your connection and your bond together, but this could even be where you feel the struggles and the wounds and the pains and the aches and the hurts of the whole world. So for example, you may be watching the television, you know, watching the news, and there can be a disaster happening across the planet, lives are being taken, there's just a lot of misery and suffering going on. But you, if you have Chiron in the 12th house, maybe as you watch these types of programs, it really drains your energy, or you almost feel that same pain, or you feel a lot of empathy and remorse and compassion with those events that are happening. Maybe you feel like it is your duty or your responsibility to help in some way, or to guide people in some way through their own pain and hurt and suffering. But even on a more personal level, if this is you meeting another person and you see that that person is struggling and really going through it themselves, maybe you have a lot of empathy towards them, and so you put your own life to the side, you know, you literally like sacrifice your own life for this other person's life and you really try to help them. However, of course, this can bring a lot of complications because this could be a situation where that person that you literally sacrificed a lot for, that person then lets you down, or that person rejects you. Maybe because, you know, that person, maybe they didn't want the help. Maybe they didn't need guided. Maybe it wasn't within your, it wasn't your job, you know, to do that. But yet, if you have Chiron in the 12th house, you feel like it is. You feel like you have to help people who are really going through all of that. But if you're not recognizing your own energy levels through that, and then that person just lets you down, they disappoint you, then you're going to be the one left out, thinking or feeling like it was just all a lie, or feeling like it wasn't worth it. You know, what was it for? You become disillusioned then. So I think there's something to be said about this placement where you got to learn how to really separate yourself from other people and their problems and their issues that they're going through. Yes, you can make great healers in that regard, but you have to be aware of your own energy levels. You have to be aware of the other person and what they can tolerate, and really identify, like, well, you know, they're living their own lives. I'm living my life. What do I want to do with my life? So yeah, a lot of implications can arise if you do that. But even better still, looking at even your own suffering and your own pain as a personal way. See, because this is the 12th house, this is the area of life where what we are going through, what we're experiencing, is shared with everything else around us. You know, so it's like this whole mentality of your pain is my pain, your joy is my joy, your suffering is my suffering, your happiness is my happiness. So I think with that being said, you may then find it difficult to identify, well, what is my pain? What is my suffering? What have I really went through, you know? You're almost subconsciously feeling other people's pain and identifying it with yourself without taking into regard how you're actually feeling and what you're really going through. And this is the thing about the 12th house, is that it's unconscious. It's the deeper layers of our psyche. So you, I think, may experience a lot of really difficult struggles in your life, and you may not be able to identify why. You know, it's like, where is this coming from? Why is this happening? And if you really strip it back, you may then sort of, it may stem from how you may have the tendency of taking on more than what you're capable of. You have the tendency of absorbing just too much stimuli from other people. So rather than turning to other people and being like, you know, you're just an energy vampire, or you're sucking all the energy from me and get away from me, it's your fault. But you also have to try to address this in yourself and think about, well, how did you also play a part? How did you also let that manifest yourself? So yeah, it's good to be aware of your own energy levels, of your own emotions, and of just your own suffering and pain and what you can really tolerate. So I think it's important for you to learn with this placement how to firstly identify when certain emotions arise, or when your energy levels are becoming quite drained, how to identify why certain things are happening to you, you know, and also letting go. The importance of really just surrendering within this house, surrendering to, hey, maybe there is something that you're going through and you're going through suffering, and you know what, maybe the thing is that you're avoiding that pain. There can be this escaping your own pain, escaping the healing process, looking to other people and think you can be a savior to them and heal them. You haven't even healed yourself. You haven't even addressed looking at yourself. Yes, Chiron is about looking at other people, and by looking to other people to help them, you can help yourself. But if you're literally always just thinking about helping others, and never reflecting on yourself, then you may find that you're just constantly avoiding. You're constantly in self-denial. You might, even with this placement, bury your wounds, bury your suffering, deny your suffering, become delusioned by your suffering, not want to look at it. But all the while, you're going to be this savior godlike figure to everybody else around you. And that may make you feel good for a little while. That may make you feel really like, yes, this is helping, this is healing, I can help the planet, I can help the collective. But is that just a form of you escaping what's going on within you? You have to be able to identify this, I think, with Chiron here in this house, because the more you keep doing that, Chiron in the 12th house people, the more you're just going to be disappointed. Really, the more you're going to be disappointed by everybody else around you. You know, you can try and help and serve and be there for as many people as you want, but if you're not addressing the things that lie dormant within you, that are hurting you, that are causing you pain and suffering, then you're just going to continue to be in that state. And who knows, you may just gravitate towards more people with more pain and more suffering, and these people are going to drain you even more, and you're just going to go on this merry-go-round, round and round and round you go, never getting out of that loop, never getting out of that cycle. Now, of course, I understand that it can be really, really difficult to be able to identify a certain wound or pain if you don't even know how or why it's there. And of course, this can also be why you can be great healers with Chiron in the 12th house, you know, where, okay, sure, maybe you come to accept that you're never going to know exactly what it was that just hurt you so much. Maybe you can never quite pinpoint it. You know, maybe it's something even about your dreams that bring it up, and then you're constantly trying to observe your dreams and find the meaning behind your dreams. But the thing about dreams is that you can try to identify what they mean, but you don't properly know. You know, the dream world is so mysterious. You could go into a dream and be like, okay, I fell in the dream, or I saw a hippopotamus in the dream. This is what it means. But yes, it may be what it means, but you also don't know for sure that that's what it means. You know, dreams are so, they're so wondrous and amazing, and there's so much stuff that we do not know, like, that we don't know about the dream world. Like, this is the 12th house. There's so much stuff we do not know about it, about why we're here in this reality and what is real. And there's so many people today trying to come up with their conclusions and their theories about it, but it's still such a mysterious area. There's so much that we do not know. And so the point of this is that if you have Chiron in the 12th house, you're just like, you may just find yourself in this endless search to figure out, like, why am I suffering? Why am I going through this? Why am I not getting better? Why? So you may try to translate your dreams. You may try to look up different spiritual practices and how to help you with it. You may do a lot of different things to try to help you make sense of it. But I think that with this placement, you are maybe having to come to terms with the possibility that maybe you're never going to fully know. You're never going to fully know why it's there. And that's okay. Maybe turning to certain substances, drugs for example, alcohol for example, can help you numb that pain, or can help you come to new realizations and new understandings about it. But if you find yourself just constantly depending on these things as a way to avoid just letting go of the possibility that, okay, maybe you're never going to know, then that can be a really self-destructive place. This could even be that there's been a pain associated with a past life. Could be. I don't know for sure. I don't know if past lives even exist. You know, there's a lot of talk about past lives out there, but do we really know? Do you really know that you were incarnated into this planet? That you lived in a past life? Did you have a dream about it? Well, who's to say that that dream wasn't just a figment of your imagination? It wasn't just a vision that is there because of maybe the stimuli that you pick up from your environment. It could be that, okay, maybe you've had a vision, a premonition, you've seen the past life that you're in, and you felt that, You've really felt it. So yeah, maybe there is a wound associated with a past life here. I don't know for sure. But you also have to come to the realization that you don't know for sure either. And that's okay. You may never know. I just think when it comes to the 12th house, it can be such a slippery slope, you know? When it comes to spirituality, it can be a really complex topic to talk about, and I've learned really how to keep myself objective with this house and to try to take it with a grain of salt and not believe everything that is associated with spiritual concepts and ideas. And you know, if you have Chiron in the 12th house, maybe you try to seek a lot of spiritual practices to help you. But maybe you just, again, you're constantly seeking this healing from all these spiritual means and measures. But yet, maybe you never get anywhere. Maybe you've even faced rejection in terms of your own spiritual beliefs. Maybe you've experienced, you know, this wound where you were so connected with God, you know, you were connected spiritually, but then you were let down, you know? Maybe the concept of God let you down, and you were left isolated, abandoned by God. So even on that note, right, if you have this placement, maybe you've even felt shut out from God or abandoned by God, let down by your spiritual practice, let down by spiritual leaders and icons and gurus and mentors. Maybe you constantly change it, you know, you look to these spiritual icons for the answer. It's like they will show me the way. They will guide me to my ascension. They will guide me to God. Constantly seeking the answer to the questions that no one, not one being, is gonna know. Another thing to mention here is that if you have this placement, well, you might really become overwhelmed by the practical side of life. You may find it difficult to attend to your everyday needs and responsibilities and obligations. You know, this could even be where you find yourself constantly trying to keep yourself busy, but you keep yourself busy, but you don't actually get anywhere, if that makes sense. You know, you just have this way of finding it difficult to let go and just relax and just be peaceful, be calm. So you're busy, but you literally, you still do not get anywhere with that busyness. You're just doing it meaninglessly, just with no real direction. And the last and final suggestion I'm going to provide here in terms of the wound is that you may experience really bad night terrors and nightmares with this placement. Maybe you have nightmares that involve you being hurt, or there's someone chasing after you, or maybe you just experience difficulty sleeping with this placement. Maybe if you're not sleeping a certain way, then you find it hard to fall asleep, or maybe you have a particular way that you can fall asleep, or maybe you're afraid of entering into the dream world, or maybe you're afraid of the astral plane. So for example, looking at lucid dreaming, maybe you've had a pretty vivid lucid dream before, or you know, maybe even when it comes to the drug side of things, maybe you've had a really intense realization through the drug enhancements, but through those realizations, maybe it's just brought a lot of suffering and pain into your life, or it's made you think differently about the collective as a whole. And because of that change in outlook, you find it hard to unlearn that. And then you feel just this deep empathy and compassion towards that realization. So for example, maybe you did a bit of shrooms and then you come to these epiphanies and realizations about the world and the collective and what everyone's going through, and then you feel it in your drug enhancing moment, but then you die down from it, and then in your everyday life you then start to see the world around you really differently, and maybe it can make you depressed. You know, this is the thing with drugs and psychedelics and things. If we specifically look at psychedelics, of course, I'm noticing a lot within the spiritual community of like psychedelics being seen as like the cool thing, you know? But what I want to strongly emphasize here is that just because, yes, they can bring a lot of spiritual growth and whatnot, there can also be a dark side to psychedelics like everything else. And what I mean by this furthermore is, for example, it can lead to neuroses, it can lead to seeing things, you know? I've heard stories of people who have went on psychedelic benders and then they literally find it hard to identify between what's real and what isn't. And if that becomes someone's perspective of the world around them, oh my gosh, like that's hard. That's really hard. You know, people in that state have to go to hospital. You know, looking at prisons and asylums with the 12th house here as well, I've heard stories of people who have had to literally go into a certain psychiatric ward because of their experiences with psychedelics. So really you have to be so careful when it comes to these things, and I've certainly learned that myself throughout my own sort of spiritual journey, is the importance of not necessarily broadcasting and talking about all these different spiritual practices and blowing it up to a huge proportion, but actually learning how to be grounded with it as well, being aware of the consequences to these practices, just like everything else. So what I want to do is I want to provide a quick little example of somebody who has Chiron in the 12th house. And I recall having a conversation with this person about this time last year. And what happened was I was sitting outside and I asked the question of, well, why am I here? Why are we here? And his response to me was, do you want to know why you're here? You're here because your mother and your father had sex. Simple as that. And then what he also continued to talk about with me was how he appreciates each and every moment. He appreciates every day. He appreciates the people that are in his life right now. And this, to me, why I'm bringing it up is because even if, right, when it comes to the past life stuff, when it comes to the karma that we bring forward into this life, into the next life and everything else, well, I think that what I'm learning from this is that we can become so wrapped up in that and trying to identify what all that means that we forget about now. Now. This life, the next life, the life after, but what about this life? What about this one we're in right now? And I definitely feel that I picked that up from this person, and I feel that understanding, it helped me. Okay, so now we have discussed the wound, let's look at some practical tips and advice on how to heal. So kind of going to the examples expressed near the beginning in terms of weak boundaries and looking to other people and wanting to serve them and help them and heal them. Well, I kind of already did express my opinions a little bit on that, though still, I think a good way to heal would be for you to learn how to set boundaries between you and other people, and try to keep yourself quite level-headed and grounded around people's pain and suffering. You know, you if you have Chiron in the 12th house, if someone is telling you the story of their pain and suffering, you know, you may just feel so much about it and feel their pain and feel what they're going through and really want to help, and this pool is like, there's this pool of you to go in. But I think a good way to help with this would be to yes, show empathy and remorse, which is one of your mighty powers and gifts with this placement, but also learning how to separate between your situation and the way you view the world and your experiences and their experiences. Yes, the 12th house is showing us the connectivity, so the interconnectedness of everything, but at the same time, you're still you. You're still an individual. They're still an individual. Their pain does not necessarily have to be your pain. Only for as much as you really let it, right? So if you decide, you want to take on all of that energy, then that is up to you. But you still have the power within you to decide for yourself consciously, no, I'm not gonna let myself give in to the pity parties or into the tears and whatnot, because it can be quite easy for you to give in to people's pity parties and their wounds. So learning to form those boundaries, healthy boundaries between you and other people, I think is really important. And I also think that by you forming those boundaries, you're also going to be better healers. Because if you go in and it's all just emotional and it's deep, the two of you can just sink into that together, and yes, that can be an emotionally healing thing. At the same time, it can also be an emotionally draining thing. So it would be good for you to learn how to form those boundaries so that whenever you go in to help other people, what you can do is not only can you help them through their emotional pain and their emotional trauma and their healing and whatnot, you can also get something from it, because you can bring practical, grounded, realistic means into it as well. So you could say to them, you know what, maybe have you thought about going for a run? Have you thought about drinking some water today? How about you try and get up a little bit earlier tomorrow? How about you call your friend about that? Hey, you know what, maybe you should try and call your mother about that. Maybe your mother is the type of person who can really help you through this situation. Maybe not necessarily me. So what I'm trying to get to is just that balance of you and others, and also between the more emotional side of life and then the more practical, grounded side of life. Even furthering on from this point, try and not get yourself wrapped up in guilt or shame associated with their pain either, because there can also be a tendency of the other person or people using emotional manipulation to suck you in or manipulate you into wanting to help them. But also, do you know what? Also being aware of your tendency to emotionally manipulate as a way of you avoiding your own pain as well. I think a good way to not do that would be to actually let yourself feel it, let yourself, I think there's also something to be said here, right, in terms of you being busy all the time, that I kind of mentioned as well. Maybe, perhaps, the reason why you're constantly just go, like busy, I'm just trying to do something, well, maybe it's whenever you sit on your own, just you, in solitude, that's when the wind comes up. That's when you feel it the most, because you're not around any other people anymore. But then when you start to feel it, maybe you don't sit with it, you want to avoid it, you want to get rid of it. So you might then, instead of surrendering and letting go, you turn to others and want to help them so much. But all that is this front as a way of you not letting go and healing and attending to your own wounds. Maybe it's too much for you. Maybe it's hard for you to sit in peace and serenity sometimes. So, a good way to heal is to learn how to sit in peace and serenity. To do something, for example, that's just for you. That this could even be a situation where you are this type of person who's just gotten used to being on your own because of how much you absorb from everybody else. You've just gotten used to it. but you sit still with everybody else's problems. So I think it's good for you to release. Do things that help you release that. Go for a walk. Go for a run. Go out into nature. Write in your journal. Play some music that really moves you, without lyrics even. Have a nice hot shower. Light your candles. Get out your crystals if you want. Light your incense if you want. You know, doing things, little things that help calm you, relax you, center you, and just learning to release a lot of that emotional energy that is so, it's just a lot. It's painful, it's sore, it's annoying, it's upsetting, it's uncomfortable, you don't know why it's there. This person said that to me earlier and I'm still holding on to it. You know, regular check-ins with your emotional body so that you can release stuff that you don't need. Another way to help with the healing process is in connection with the hospitals, asylums, and prisons, okay? So the 12th house could be associated with these things. Well, if you have Chiron in the 12th house, maybe you could go and you could work in a maternity ward, something of that sort. So kind of looking at the potentiality of your mother having implications whenever you were in the womb. Well, you could go and work alongside pregnant women, you know, or you could go and work alongside even drug users, you know. Again, if there's a wound associated with drugs here and there's implications that you experience with drugs, you could also go into hospitals and prisons and try to understand people's mentality, their psychology towards drugs and why they use them. Trying just to like get yourself into a profession maybe that uses these things that maybe you've suffered from yourself, but using them in a way that's practical and helps other people, not where you become super emotionally invested and drained and whatnot, but where you can arrive to some practical conclusions for other people so that they themselves can be helped. And the last and final way that I'm going to suggest for healing is actually when it comes to spirituality. So whilst yes, there can be an avoidance of your own pain through spiritual things, I think there's also something to be said about you using spiritual tools in a beneficial way, you know, in a really positive way, in a benefiting way, for you to just feel good about yourself. And if you find a certain spiritual practice that does resonate with you and makes you feel good and is really comforting to your soul, then, you know, that's great. So even furthering on from that, yes, you can maybe mentor certain people and help other people, guide other people through those same spiritual practices as well. Okay then, Cosmic Warriors, so that concludes my video on Chiron in the 12th house. So what we did is we looked at the wound, followed by some practical tips and advice on how to heal. Thank you so much for watching, thank you for subscribing, and of course if you would like to see more videos from myself and you have not yet subscribed, then go right ahead and click that subscribe button. And I will be back with another video very, very soon. Bye!